Hey, LaDonna, it's Dr. Scott. Has some feedback for you on your literature review draft. It's going to be pretty short because the draft is a little short, but it's a work in progress, and I get that. I think you have a decent foundation, but there's a couple things you need to think about as you move forward. So I'm just going to kind of talk through my feedback. I will send you this document as well. It just has some notes jotted in the margin, just kind of reminders for me of things to talk to you about during this screencast. You might hear things in the background. It's Saturday morning here. The dogs bark at anything, so you might hear animals and whatnot in the background. All right, so your literature review draft. There are parts, and I highlight them in gray, where I'm just kind of confused at what you're saying. And those aren't really that big of an issue right now because we're not really at the proofreading or anything like that. But this sentence right here, specify to students who discontinue attending one college to attend another, whether local or out of state. You're defining transfer students. I get that. It just seems weird that it's coming after you've already mentioned transfer students a couple times. Also, do you really need it? I don't think you do. I think we know what transfer students are. If you're using a definition that's maybe outside of what most folks would expect, then or if your project is looking at certain transfer students, like if you're only looking at transfer students who are coming from out of state, like in your experience, or if you're looking at transfer students who are coming from a religious institution or something like that, like I think definition matters, but here I don't know. So the definition matters, like, yeah, okay, cool, have this, but if not, take it out. All right, I really like the categories that you mentioned here, and I'm just kind of curious, does your literature review follow this, or is it like the full version that you're going to have completed? If it does, that's fine, that's great. I think that these are great categories. The one thing that you really kind of need to think about is ways to kind of hint at how these categories are important to your project as a whole. So you've reviewed a bunch of literature, and let's say you see these three categories. That's great, but I think in your literature review there has to be some kind of acknowledgement that, like, knowing about these three, that's going to impact my project in this way. Oops. Okay. That's super important as you move forward. So totally fine to have these categories, but what do these categories mean in the terms of your project? That has to be explained in the literature review. Okay. Confusing sentence here. Again, not a big deal. I did want you to be a little bit clearer. You're talking about lack of satisfaction amongst transfer students when they're unable to transfer credits, and that totally makes sense. But what institution are you talking about? Are they pissed at their previous institution for not offering classes that transferred easily? Are they upset with the incoming institution because they're not giving credit for things that they think that they deserve? I think that needs to be a little bit clearer. You talk about native students, and I think I know what you mean there. Earlier, when you were defining terms, like if you want to define transfer students, if that's important, maybe you also define this. There's some things I thought were pretty interesting, just as a college professor who's interested in doing the right thing for our students. Like, this kind of taught me a lot. This dip, or whatever, the temporary dip in GPA, I had no idea about that, but it kind of makes sense though after you're reading your literature review. And finally, just to kind of close out, I'm just going to repeat what I said earlier. The organization scheme that you set up, like the social, the academic, and I think that there was something else. Like those categories for a literature review, that's awesome if you're keeping with that. If you're not, you kind of have to explain where the literature review is going, like what are the main categories. And again, like I mentioned earlier, it's super important to explain the relevance of the literature you found for the project, for your overall research project as a whole. Okay, so like maybe you're going to say, I'm going to ask questions that are specifically about their ability to adjust socially. Great. All right. Talk a little bit about how the research you found helps impact some of your decisions when it comes to the project. All right. I hope that helps, and I look forward to chatting with you on Monday at noon. And tomorrow morning I'll be taking a look at your IRB application, and I'll send you another screencast about that. Okay. That's it for now. Talk to you soon.